Okay, let's talk about the option agreement or production contract. That's the deal between the producers and the author. This is the most important agreement that you're going to need to get started. It's an agreement that is something that I will negotiate with the author's agent. But there are certain basic parameters that have been traditional in the theater for many years. So it's a pretty straightforward negotiation. Nevertheless, it needs to be in a contract. It needs to be signed by both the producer and the author so that you as a producer know what rights you have and you can assign those rights to the limited liability company you're going to form with the investors so that they know what rights they're investing in. So let's talk about this agreement with the author. Okay? It's going to describe a few basic points. It's going to describe the play, that it's an original play. The author says it's original, and you're going to get those representations and warranties from him that it's original. You're going to agree to pay the author an advance, usually against royalties, although sometimes it's a fee. It could be as small as $1 or $100 or as great as $50,000. At this stage of the development, you're typically not going to be spending a lot of money up front with the author. But the author, from their point of view, wants to know that you're going to do something with the play and doesn't want you to control it for a year or 2 or 3 without paying any money for it. So that's part of the negotiation. What is the option fee? The other part is what's the royalty? Now, there are some typical things here. Typically, off-Broadway, a royalty is 6%. And that's 6% for a musical. It's usually divided 2 to the book writer, 2 to the composer, and 2 to the lyricist. For a straight play, it's usually 5%, but it's all negotiable. You got a hot author, maybe he asks for more. So that's the royalty. Then there's other pieces we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the territory, where you get to produce it. Once you've produced it, there's additional territories. Can you do it in London? Can you do it in South Africa? Can you do it in Canada? Can you take out a tour? There's also additional pieces to this puzzle which have to do with what's called subsidiary rights. Once you've produced the play, you should be entitled to some piece of the play in the future because you've made a contribution through your production to the commercial success of this play in the future. Now, maybe you get a tiny piece for having done a festival production of it. Maybe you get a bigger piece having done a regional theater production of it. And when you do a commercial production on Broadway, off Broadway, then you get even a larger piece, as much as 40% of the author's share of income from future productions that you are not producing. The ones you produce, you have a separate deal with. When you're not producing them, it's gone on to become a movie or it's being licensed, then you're entitled to share a piece of those, what's called subsidiary rights. There are other things in the author agreement having to do with a cast album and possibly even music publishing. All of that is negotiated between the theatrical attorney on behalf of the producer and the author's agent. That is something that you want to focus on, and that is something that you want to have in place before you spend too much money on a production. Don't put the cart before the horse. Don't raise money without having the rights to the show. Don't invest in a festival production or anything else until you have the rights to the play. That's the first thing. Now, I'm going to have a second part of this option production contract video that'll be either right below this or at the bottom of the page in a link where I'll go through the contract term by term, clause by clause, and we'll discuss each of those points. See you then.